ladies and gentlemen, we apologize. We've stacked up so many incredible guests. I could do an hour with every single one of do an hour with Jim Jordan, hour with Julie Kelly, hour with Mike Davis, but we have the actual certification of Trump's win that will be happening here soon, and we're not going to miss it. And so to lay out the red carpet, let me bring on my favorite red friend, the great Viceroy. Mike Davis joins the program live now. Happy J6, Mike.
Happy J6, Ben.
Happy J6, buddy. Wow. Really looking forward to the monument of Kamala Harris certifying her loss. I think that we should immediately move to make that and the Trump assassination monument real and tangible in Washington, D.C. Are you in Washington, D.C. right now? Are you snowed in?
I am flying into Washington, D.C. late tonight. I'm in Colorado right now, in the mountains where we get a foot of snow every day and we don't cry about it like they do in D.C.
A lot of crying in D.C., Mike, a lot of rending of garments, and a lot of people who are fleeing. So you're going to D.C. A lot of people are fleeing D.C. Matthew Graves is one of them. Jay Bratt is one of them. Jack Smith is one of them. Obviously, Chris Wray. And on their way out, you sort of like smack them right in the ass with like a please lawyer up. It's not going to be pretty or fun for you. Can you please explain what awaits after Trump's certification and inauguration for some of these people who've executed the lawfare against Donald Trump?
Yeah, so Joe Biden and Merrick Garland and Jay Bratt and Jack Smith and Matthew Graves and all these other Biden Justice Department officials who politicized and weaponized our intel agencies and law enforcement for the last 4 years to go after Trump, his top aides like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, who went to prison after they asserted constitutional executive privilege going back 250 years to George Washington for what they did to these January 6th defendants, what they're continuing to do to these January 6th defendants, where they are politically persecuted. Yes, persecuted under the Supreme Court's Fisher decision last June. Julie Kelly has done a remarkable job covering these persecutions, and you just had her on. She's a friend and an ally. She's great. I would say to all these Biden Democrat operatives who did this, lawyer up. And I mean that very sincerely, because you have committed a very serious federal civil rights felony, conspiracy against rights, 18 USC Section 241. They're very familiar with this charge because it's one of the 4 counts against President Trump in the DC January 6th indictment for the non-crime of objecting to a presidential election, which is allowed by the presidential, the Electoral Count Act of 1887 and the First Amendment. Democrats objected to Republican wins in 1968, 2000, 2004, and 2016. We don't see Al Gore and John Kerry and Hillary Clinton being charged and going to prison like they did to Trump. So lawyer up, guys. You guys were the hunters for the last 4 years, and starting on January 20th at noon, you're going to become the hunted. And it's going to be a very expensive and very personally heart-wrenching process for you and your families, like you guys have done to Trump and his supporters for non-crimes. I'm going to push very hard from the Article 3 projects for the Trump 47 Justice Department to actually go after you guys for your real crimes.
Yes, and many of those crimes are stingingly painful today on January 6th, where peaceful protesters by the thousands have been locked up, had their lives destroyed by Joe Biden. A message perhaps to Liz Cheney, Mike. Liz Cheney, a lot of news since we've last been live. It's been about 2.5 weeks since you've been on the program. Liz Cheney getting an award from Joe Biden, a pat on the back. I doubt that's what you would give her if you were in charge of the White House. Can you please explain the fate that awaits Liz Cheney?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this, Liz Cheney, enjoy your moments in the sun where this demented old creep president gives you an award for being an awful human being. We have the evidence that you conspired with Cassidy Hutchinson to get her to change her testimony. That's obstruction of justice. That's subornation of perjury. That's conspiracy. So, Liz, your daddy has gotten you every job you've had in your life, going back to your days as a lifeguard. Unfortunately, your daddy couldn't save you when your constituents in Wyoming threw your ass out of office and put in a member of Congress who actually represents them. You've probably not stepped foot in Wyoming since then. Maybe to go on a private jet to Jackson Hole to go skiing or something like that. Otherwise, I seriously doubt you've spent any time in Wyoming. But I would say to Liz, you should particularly lawyer up, because the evidence is clear. What you did with Cassidy Hutchinson is a federal felony. So nobody's above the law. And if you've done nothing wrong, then the grand jury won't indict you. I think that's what you guys have said to Trump and his supporters over the last 4 years.
When you hear the reports of Donald Trump pardoning thousands of J6ers on day one, this must make you very happy. This is what I assume you endorse, Mike. How is this going to happen? I mean, we've never seen anything like this, I guess, on day one of a presidency. What would you recommend to the president?
I mean, I've said this all along from the Article 3 project very publicly that President Trump should pardon almost, just like Julie Kelly said, President Trump should pardon almost everyone on January 6th. And for the worst offenders, their sentences should be commuted, because nothing that happened on January 6th calls for a 22-year prison sentence. January 6th was a lawful protest permitted by the National Park Service that devolved into a riot. And there are three categories of people who were there that day. There were people who were there peacefully, and even if you disagree with them, even if you think they're crazy, they have an absolute First Amendment right to be there. There were people who trespassed, and they should have been charged with trespass, and there were people who were violent, and those people should have been treated more harshly. But the Biden regime lumped everyone together, said that they were all insurrectionists, even though no one was charged with insurrection, and threw the book at them. So I say to these Biden Democrat Justice Department officials, these January 6th units, go to hell and lawyer up, because you're going to face consequences for this too. Same with these judges. You're not immune from 18 USC Section 241, conspiracy against rights. If you are conspiring to violate the constitutional rights of Americans, you are committing a very serious federal civil rights felony. And just because you're a judge doesn't mean you get immunity from that. So there must be consequences. It must start with the pardons and commutations of sentences for these January 6 defendants. Then there must be probes set up, criminal probes, Office of Professional Responsibility probes, Inspector General probes, congressional probes. What they did to these January 6 defendants is inexcusable. It's monstrous. They tried to destroy these people's lives because they disagreed with them politically. And I don't want to hear anything from the Biden defenders. These people let BLM and Antifa and Hamas supporters cause a lot more death and destruction across America, and they essentially got amnesty. And then Joe Biden just freed from death row child rapists and murderers. So to the people who are going to cry about these January 6th pardons and commutations of sentences, go to hell.
I couldn't agree with you more. When I read Merrick Garland's statement on January 6th today, it continues to include falsehoods. Like there were 4 officers who died that day. That's factually untrue. This is the top law enforcement official in the country using lies still that we have found demonstrably untrue. 4 police officers did not die that day. Some died of their own hand. Some died of medical conditions afterwards that have nothing to do with January 6th. Now, there are January 6th defendants, however, that have taken their lives, and they're not with us anymore. I don't know what the actual suicidality rate is, but it's quite high. It seems like every single month there's another horrible story of a J6 defendant that took their own life instead of facing a jury in Washington, D.C. that is a guaranteed conviction. And so my question to you, Mike, is from the civil side. You've talked about the federal side and what a Republican Congress hopefully will have the balls to do. What about from a civil side? I'm starting to hear some drumming up of individuals that are planning on suing those involved in these malicious prosecutions. How could that be structured? How would that move forward? Is there a possibility for that to happen, for J6ers to create a class action lawsuit against those who terrorize them?
They should absolutely bring civil lawsuits, and the Trump 47 Justice Department should decline to defend these prosecutors who did this. They should not indemnify them. They should not pay any federal funds for what these prosecutors have done. They should let these prosecutors get sued in their individual capacity and have to hire their own private lawyers to defend themselves. Make all these law firms spend all their time defending these people with their pro bono efforts instead of these liberal law firms being on offense for the next 4 years. Make them be on defense, defending all of these Biden prosecutors, Biden agents, Biden operatives from the outside of government, the people like Andrew Weissman. When you have a conspiracy against rights, it's not just government officials who are subject to this, who are subject to both civil and criminal liability. If you have people outside of government working with government officials to violate constitutional rights, they are also personally liable for that.
So this could mean, just from the civil perspective, Mike, this could mean the destruction of people that did this. This could mean financial and political and personal destruction of the individuals who did this. So, I mean, these aren't idle threats.
God willing, they should face severe, and I mean the most severe, legal, political, and financial consequences for what they've done to Trump, his top aides like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, who went to prison, Trump supporters on January 6th, who were politically persecuted under the Supreme Court's Fisher ruling last June. And then these Biden operatives continue to do this. They ignore the Fisher decision, pretend like the Supreme Court didn't rule the way that it did. They've gone after parents outraged by gender chaos in schools and the resulting rapes in these bathrooms. They've gone after Christians, including throwing a 75-year-old Christian in prison for praying at an abortion clinic while they give amnesty to the much more deadly and destructive BLM and Antifa and Hamas supporters. There must be consequences, and that's going to start on January 20th at noon. So I'm glad that Matthew Graves and Jack Smith and Jay Bratt are thumping their chest on the way out the door. They better lawyer up.
Very quickly, Mike, because I know we're up against a hard out, Juan Merchan. There's so much news that happened since we were last live, but got to get to Juan Merchan saying Trump will come into my courthouse and you're going to be sentenced. And I have a right, he said in his ruling, I have a right to put you in prison for 4 years. Juan Merchan.
I would say this to Juan Merchan, you better also lawyer up, because you're also, what you're doing is also a very serious federal civil rights felony. Again, 18 USC section 241. There are so many reversible errors in this bogus New York case, but where Juan Merchan has really stepped into it legally is he put an illegal, unconstitutional gag order on President Trump, where he can't speak out during this process. And he can't speak out about the fact, for example, that Juan Merchan's adult daughter, Lauren Merchan, is raising money off of this case. Lauren Merchan is getting paid by Kamala Harris's campaign. That required Juan Merchan's recusal under New York statute. That's not just crazy Mike Davis saying that. A former Clinton judge said that on CNN, Caitlin Collins' show on CNN on April 5th. How did Juan Merchan respond? He told Trump, if you mention my daughter's name and my conflict of interest, I'm going to throw you in prison. That is a very, very serious crime by Juan Merchan. 18 USC section 241.
Is Donald Trump going to be able to get out of appearing here in court? I know he's filed a motion this morning to stop it, but this is supposed to happen this week, I believe. Trump is supposed to be schlepped into court this week.
Yeah, on the 10th. Donald Trump is supposed to be distracted from being the president-elect and getting intel briefings and preparing to take office on January 20th, so we can go to this third world Marxist hellhole courtroom, even via Skype or video, to let Juan Merchan scold him Juan Merchan can also go to hell. Lawyer up, buddy.
Okay, so the era of the viceroy coming in hot, ladies and gentlemen. The era of Mike as viceroy. I've told you, Mike, grow a long mustache, waxed, long, red mustache. Okay, get into some of those Renaissance, some of the Renaissance garb. Have a staff, right, with like a very large stone at the top of it that you walk with, right, that clicks as you walk through the halls, that scares people. And I'll be in your hype crew. You right? I'll be in your when you walk into a room, I'll be like, the viceroy. I'll do it.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to walk. I'm going to have people carrying me, of course, as the viceroy. But I'm all joking aside, I'm very serious about this to all these Democrat prosecutors and agents and witnesses and judges and other operatives. You have been the hunters for the last 4 years. Prepare to be the hunted legally, politically, and financially. Justice is coming. Nobody's above the law. Lawyer up.
We're very, very excited to work with you on all of this, Mike. Everybody can, of course, find Mike. You already follow him, most likely. He's got hundreds of thousands of followers now. Mike, come on, man. Look at you. You're the influencer, buddy. He's got hundreds of thousands of followers on X, but you must be one of them. Go over and follow Mike, obviously. The Article 3 Project is Mike's.
I'm not at the Ben Johnson level yet. Goals.
We're you know what? Every one of us has a note to play, Mike, okay, in the taking back of our country and the saving of Western civilization. Article 3 Project is Mike's, is where Mike works and his organization. You should go and you should follow their work. You should see how much they freak out. The corporate press, everyone, like, oh my gosh, like having Mike on is just like catnip for MSNBC. They just watch every single day. They can't help themselves, and it's so fun. And you can just hear the screaming and wailing and like the Gollum style gnashing of teeth. It's just wonderful. And Mike, in parting here, Trump's nominees. You're a man of the Senate. Trump's nominees. They're going to sail through. Yes, we hear that now. Pete Hegseth, Kash Patel. Sounds like John Thune signaling it's all going to move. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing when President Trump named Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard, all the very smart people in Washington said that they were dead on arrival. And then the Article 3 Project Action Center, we went on your show and other shows, Ben, and got your audience to light up the Senate with phone calls and emails at article3project.org, take action. And 3 days later, they went from dead on arrival to when can they start? It's amazing how we gave them an attitude adjustment, Ben.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune told that Pete Hegseth has the votes to be confirmed. Even John Fetterman saying he's going to vote for all of Trump's nominees. I mean, come on, baby. We're in a different landscape here now, baby. It's going to be beautiful, Mike, to watch Kamala Harris certify that L. I cannot wait. We'll be live, and we thank you, Mike, for helping make this happen.
Thank you, Ben.
Godspeed.